Hi everyone, welcome to Cinematica Animalia, a podcast that delves into the biology of movie monsters. My name is Sam Perrin, I'm an invasive ecologist, and this is our YouTube highlight of this week's episode. If you enjoy it, make sure you check out the full episode on any of your favourite podcast streaming services for a more in-depth look at our weekly creatures, or ecosystem, as well as additional segments on story, environmental news, and fun movie trivia. You can find all the links in the description below the video, or inscribed in Aramaic on the inside of most horseshoe crab exoskeletons, whatever's easiest for you. Thanks for listening, supporting, and hopefully learning. The three monsters we're looking at this week are going to be the land octopus, the imp, and then hopefully some giant crustaceans as well. You have lots of octopodes or octopi or octoplonks, which exist in parts of the world where the difference between tide coming in and tide going out is massive, which leaves rock pools everywhere, whether it's along beaches or intertidal zones. Plenty of octopuses, particularly when it's dark, because many octoplonks are nocturnal, will move across land from rock pool to find prey. There are some who can survive for a few minutes on land, up to 20 to 30 minutes in some species cases, but most of the time it's just a couple of minutes. And normally they need to be quite wet. So they generally wouldn't go out if it's a hot day. If there's plenty of water on the rocks already, whether that's from spray from the sea or because the tide's gone out fairly recently, then they can probably survive for a bit longer. But like I said, most of them are nocturnal, so they're not going to be going out when the sun hits them directly. And from what I understand, that is one of the things you see a lot of the time in this game, like an octopus just hanging about on land in the sunlight.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it looks less like an octopus, more just like this enormous ball of tentacles and appearance and maybe refuse with a large Egyptian vulture-looking beak sticking out of the middle of it.
Yeah. So, as we talked about last week, and I love that we've had 2 octopus episodes in a row, octopus do have beaks, but they do not look like that. They look more like parrot beaks.
Like a parrot beak.
Yeah, definitely. Smaller.
Yeah, and they're on the underside of the body. So, as opposed to the octopus last week, who has a very much kind of a more mammalian setup, they're underneath the body.
Between all the tentacles, yeah.
Yeah, so the tentacles kind of reach out for food and bring it back to under the body. This thing has... We don't know what's under the body because everything looks so like Adam said, would you say a giant ball of refuse?
Yeah, everything is the body. I don't know which side is up.
So, but it's a very odd beak. Like, it looks like it consumes things externally, as opposed to most octopuses, which kind of have a protective set of muscle around the beak, which it, opens up that muscle to expose the beak. This thing's beak is sticking right out, yeah?
Yeah, it's well outside the range of the tentacles, not the range of the tentacles rather, but sticking out from the body itself, not hidden underneath between the tentacles, which I think kind of points towards this being adapted to tearing chunks out of a larger prey that it maybe has to kind of hold, which octopodes, octopi, octoplonks, octopods already do, but they tend to be much smaller creatures that will be easier to crush with their beak and kind of get at.
Yeah.
But this creature is quite large, anywhere from, I would say, 6 to 10 meters across and maybe 4 to 5 meters tall, and very large, very angry, and very aggressive.
Again, octopus being on land, I don't think it's that outlandish, but I don't think they would be out there for very long. I think that there's tons of octoplonks on land, but you are just, in the water. And the fact that you see them so rarely is just, they don't move between water bodies that often.
It's very difficult for an octopus to be out of the water, because like Sam said at the beginning of this section, They are adapted to a marine lifestyle and living underwater. Their body does not have the support to there's no skeleton, exoskeleton or endoskeleton to give them structure out of the water. So, although there is a pretty fascinating video of an octopus thrashing a tentacle and catching a seagull I think it was trying to take off, so it was mid-flight, you could consider that, but that is a probably 1 in a million chance, and by and large, they're going to be feeding on and catching organisms either within the tide pools, maybe a little bit outside of the water like a crab, but mostly in the water.
When they do move from rock pool to rock pool, they're not hunting in between the rock pools. They will generally, they have been spotted with prey between the rock pools, but it's generally just because they're dragging prey back to their home pool.
Right.
Or whatever. Yeah, and they move along much the same way they move when they're on the bottom of the ocean. They grasp their suckers onto things and they kind of pull themselves along like that. But they don't seem to be doing that here. There's kind of, again, it's so difficult to tell because it looks so crazy, but it seems almost more like a rolling or trundling motion.
Trundling is a great word for it.
It's pretty hard because they are around water bodies, so you could almost say that they are living a more amphibious lifestyle than a purely terrestrial one, and part of this huge mass of whatever it is covering their bodies may be used to help with water retention, which can help with temperature regulation and sun protection maybe, though I think that water would just magnify it like a magnifying glass to make it worse. I'm not a physicist, don't quote me on that. One of the places you see them is a place called Liurna of the Lakes, which is just a massive wetland, and the water there is, I would say, anywhere from 60 centimeters or about 2 feet deep almost everywhere. So they're well suited to that environment. And then when you see them on the beach, they're right next to the ocean. So
do you have a theory as to why they are patrolling the beaches?
I think they're just like opportunistically looking for prey, much like a gator will hang out in the water and kind of ambush prey that come too close, much to the prey's chagrin and surprise. You also have one little mechanism we haven't talked about yet, a very, very sad and kind of disgusting thing they do in the game is if you've got their health down, you've been hurting them, they will straight up bite off one of their tentacles, consume it, and heal themselves. Which there are ways in which bodies will start to metabolize its own tissue to try to get through a starvation period, but it is usually not as dramatic nor nearly as sudden as biting off one of your own tentacles and immediately healing 20%, if you will.
Should say the one species of octopus that is observed to do this on a regular basis, hopping from rock pool to rock pool, like I said, normally at night, is called Abdobus aculeatus, and they're found mainly in Southeast Asia and Northern Australia.